There's a specific feeling you get when you watch a Makoto Shinkai film. Not the usual warmth or the big romantic payoff you'd expect. It's something quieter, softer, almost painful. Like a memory that's not yours, but still somehow yours. It's love, but written through distance instead of closeness. Through longing, not resolution. Shinkai doesn't start with two people who fit together. He starts with a gap between them. A timeline off by minutes. A place they can't reach. A message that arrives too late. A door that closes just a second before they touch hands. That thin space, impossibly small but devastatingly wide, becomes the heartbeat of his stories. It's why these movies stick with you long after they're over. You're not remembering the characters being together, you're remembering what it felt like when they weren't. Before we break down how he writes that feeling, it's worth knowing the person shaping it. Makoto Shinkai didn't come from a big studio or a long legacy of animation giants. He started out basically as a one-man crew, writing, directing, animating, and drawing his early films on his own. His first breakthrough, Voices of a Distant Star, was made almost entirely by him on an old Mac. It was raw, intimate, and emotional in a way anime wasn't really leaning into at the time. And it set the tone for everything he'd become known for. Distance, connection, separation, and the impossible space between hearts. Over time, he went from the next Miyazaki label to something even more interesting. The director who defined a new kind of modern emotional storytelling. Your Name broke box office records. Weathering with You became a cultural flashpoint, and Suzume pulled global audiences into a story about grief, loss, and healing wrapped in a supernatural road trip. He's influential not because he imitates what came before, but because he writes emotional truth in a way that feels like lived experience. His films look gorgeous, but what people actually respond to is that quiet ache underneath. And the reason that ache hits so hard is because Shinkai treats love the same way he treats weather, light, or time itself. Something that moves, slips past you, or arrives in a moment you weren't prepared for. His characters don't fall in love at the perfect time. They fall in love at the worst possible one. They meet right before they have to part. They connect right when the universe starts pulling them in opposite directions. Every Shinkai relationship begins on the edge of something, and that tension becomes the story. What makes Shinkai's approach so effective is that he builds longing into the world itself long before the characters ever voice it. His environments are emotional spaces. Weather patterns, shifting light, distant skylines, passing trains, all of it reflecting the internal state of the people living inside them. Instead of telling us someone feels isolated, he shows us a train pulling away just as the characters reach the platform. Instead of showing two people reunited, he lets their shadows overlap before they do. He treats distance as a living presence. It stretches, contracts, and moves with them like a second protagonist. You see it most clearly in how his characters communicate. They're always reaching out in fragments, whether it's a text that doesn't send, a note that gets lost, a memory that fades, a dream they can't hold on to, or a name they almost remember. These are tiny failures on their own, but stacked together they create something universal. That fear of missing the moment you were supposed to have. Shinkai builds tension not through danger, but through almost connection. Even the timing of his scenes is built around restraint. He holds shots a little too long, letting silence do what dialogue usually would. Characters don't explain how they feel because they don't really fully understand it themselves. Their longing isn't dramatic, it's subtle, drifting in with the same softness as the morning light he's famous for animating. And then he layers in something that few directors use as elegantly: emotional geography. Shinkai's characters are constantly moving through liminal spaces, whether that's stairwells, school rooftops, train crossings, tunnels, or bridges. Places where you're not really fully here or there. Places where connections almost happen before the world pulls you back into motion. It's deliberate. He puts his characters in locations where people pass each other without speaking, where distance is measured in steps but feel like miles. These physical spaces become metaphors for emotional ones. The relationships that could blossom but don't, the futures that almost form but slip away. The longing becomes inevitable, not because the story forces it, but because the world quietly shapes it. Shinkai's final ingredient is time. He treats it less like a timeline and more like an emotional force that's always shifting around the characters. In most stories, time either moves forward or backward. In Shinkai's work, it bends, it loops, it slips, it forgets you, and it remembers you at the wrong moment. Love in his films doesn't struggle against villains or obstacles, it struggles against timing, and timing always wins. You see it in 5 centimeters per second, where the entire relationship is swallowed by small delays and missed windows. You see it in Your Name, where the universe lets Taki and Mitsuha meet, but only through dreams that dissolve as soon as they wake. You also see it in Suzume, where the past literally calls out to the present. A childhood self reaching for a future self who still hasn't healed. Time becomes the real antagonist, not because it hurts them, but because it keeps moving, whether they're ready or not. Shinkai uses this tension to make ordinary moments feel enormous. A delayed train, a forgotten notebook, a message delivered a few seconds too late. None of these would matter in any other film, but Shinkai frames them like emotional earthquakes. But then right when the longing is at its peak, he lets time collapse. Not permanently, not dramatically, just long enough for the characters to cross paths again, even for a second. These brief collisions are what make his stories feel fated. Not fate as in destiny, but fate as recognition. That sense of, you're the person I've been moving toward without knowing it. Shinkai understands something most romance storytellers don't. Love doesn't feel powerful because it's fulfilled. It feels powerful because it almost wasn't. His characters cling to tiny, fragile memories. The sound of rain on a rooftop, the glow of a sunset, a name spoken once and then lost. They aren't fighting for a fantasy. They're fighting to hold on to something real before time takes it away. By the time they finally meet, or meet again, we're not cheering because they got together. We're cheering because they found a moment that survived every missed connection, every forgotten detail, every wrong timeline. They earned the right to exist in the same frame. Shinkai's love stories linger because they don't promise forever. They promise a moment, one that feels so rare, so delicate, you hold on to it in the same way his characters do, with that ache in your chest. There's something almost strange about how quiet Shinkai's stories are when you strip them down. No big speeches, no grand declarations, just people trying to understand a feeling they can't fully name yet. And maybe that's why his films hit the way they do. They don't tell you what love is supposed to be. They let you sit with that uncertainty and find your own meaning in it. Because underneath all that visual beauty and cosmic timing, Shinkai's doing something simple but rare. He writes love the way most people actually experience it. Slowly, awkwardly, and with that constant question of, am I too late? Alright, if you've made it this far, I'm glad you sat in that space with me. If you want more breakdowns like this on Shinkai, Ghibli, or any story that hits deeper emotional layers under the surface, feel free to stick around. There's a lot more to explore.